The night he was born, thunder rolled gently across Aiyetoro's hills, and the midwife claimed the oriki of the ancestors whispered through the wind. Baba Olowo, head of the lineage, named him Aremo Femi, first son, heir to the Oya title. The boy's first cry sounded like a talking drum, loud, musical, prophetic. The elder said his star glowed so bright the gods must have carved it themselves. And for many years that prophecy seemed to hold. By 10, Femi had memorized all the family's ancestral oriki. He placed top in regional exams and built a solar lamp from scraps found in his grandfather's barn. Teachers praised him. Chiefs toasted him. Girls in church shyly passed him folded notes after youth fellowship. Baba Olowo would often raise his glass and say, "This one, he will carry our name beyond borders." Then came Deji. 2 years later, same mother, same compound, but a different reception. His cry was soft, like an apology, his eyes large and unsure. Even the midwife barely noticed him. Baba Olowo said nothing for minutes after his birth. Mama Ronke smiled weakly and whispered, "May he grow to be wise." But her heart remained heavy. As they grew, the difference grew louder. Femi walked with confidence, answered questions with grace, and prayed like a bishop's son. Deji chewed on pencils, stared at the floor, and often answered, "I don't know." Where Femi spoke, people listened. Where Deji spoke, people corrected. The only time his name was said with excitement was when they shouted, "Femi's brother!" At family gatherings, uncles clapped Femi's back and said, "You remind me of your grandfather." But when Deji passed, they shook their heads and muttered, "Waste of name." It wasn't that Deji didn't try. He read. He repaired spoilt radios. He even won a local challenge for fixing a borehole switch. But his efforts lived in shadows, drowned beneath Femi's sun. By 27, Femi worked at a top tech firm in Ibadan, drove a Corolla, and was engaged to Titi, a kind nurse. He sent money home, sponsored cousins, and had a suite reserved for his Oya coronation. Deji, meanwhile, fixed generators for shop owners and pepper grinders. He sat under his zinc repair shed in the market, sweat trickling down his face, grease staining his nails. The villagers respected his hands, but forgot his name. One Sunday afternoon, the generator at home failed. Baba Olowo shouted from the backyard, "Deji, come and do the only thing you're good for." Deji tried. The coil was fried. He stood up, defeated. Baba's voice cut through him like a blade. "Even generator you cannot fix? If it was Femi, he would have fixed it blindfolded." Something cracked inside Deji. He didn't reply. He didn't scream. He just turned away, entered his small room, and sat on the floor. Femi, who had come home for the weekend, said nothing. That night, while Femi snored on the left bed, Deji lay wide awake, his chest burning, his fists clenched under his pillow. The compound was quiet, but inside Deji's heart, a storm was building when the ancestors themselves might come to fear. The days that followed felt like walking with stones in his chest. Deji moved like smoke, present but unnoticed. Mama Ronke asked if he was okay. He nodded. Baba ignored him. Femi returned to Ibadan with fresh yams and prayers. The house returned to its rhythm, praise for one son, silence for the other. One evening, Deji sat on a concrete slab beside his repair shed, eyes on the orange sky. The sun was dipping low, almost shy. The market around him buzzed, but inside he felt hollow. His thoughts churned. What if I wasn't born at all? Would they have noticed? Just then, Somalola, his old friend, strolled by with a cold sachet of water. Somi had seen Deji's quiet decline for years, but this time something about his posture made him stop. "You dey think like elder way lose land case," Somi said, plopping beside him. Deji forced a weak smile. "I know lose land, but I think say I done lose myself." "Now Baba again?" Deji nodded. "I dey try, Somi. I dey try die, but he never reach. Even generator matter done turn insult. I no choose to be like this." Somi exhaled slowly. "Not everybody carry light from birth. Some go find am for bush. Deji frowned. Bush K? My papa talks say some light day hidden. You go gats reach Igbo Oro to take 'em. Deji laughed. Your papa a farmer and drummer? Since when he sabi spiritual matter? Somi's voice dropped. My papa is more than farmer. He is Baba Adefalaju. You remember that small hut waiting behind the sacred grove near River Oro? Deji's smile faded. People they say he sees things others don't. He didn't help men find lost glory. He can help you too. Deji looked at Somi, heart thudding. He didn't believe in voodoo or dark things, but he was desperate. Not for money, not for fame, just for something, to be seen, to matter. That night, the moon hid behind gray clouds as Somi led Deji through narrow bush paths. Crickets cried. The air smelt of damp earth and old bark. After 30 minutes, they reached a small, clay-painted hut surrounded by chalk stones. A dim lantern flickered beside the door. Inside, an old man sat cross-legged in white wrappers. His head was bald, one eye milky. Cowries lay scattered around him in patterns that seemed to breathe. Who walks into Igbo Oro? The man asked without looking. Somi bowed. Baba, he seeks the light that skips his name. The old man's cloudy eyes shifted to Deji. You carry sorrow like a sack. Speak. Deji knelt. His voice trembled. I'm tired. I want to shine. Not in my brother's shadow. I want his crown, his life, his favor. The air grew colder. You want another man's star? Baba Adefalaju asked. Deji nodded. The old man leaned forward. Then bring me his worn singlet and his boxers, things soaked in his ease. Place them inside this gourd before dawn. He placed a small, beaded calabash in Deji's hands. Why, those things? Deji asked. Baba's voice hardened. They carry what he does not guard, his essence. Somi swallowed hard. And then the exchange begins. But beware, destiny stolen listens, watches, and fights back. Deji took the calabash. It pulsed warm in his palms. Outside, wind rustled the leaves, and something unseen howled in the bush. He had until sunrise. The night was heavy with silence. Deji crept into the compound like a thief in his own home. Mama had gone to her room after evening prayers. Baba had retired with a cup of hot ogi. The hallway bulb flickered weakly, casting long shadows. Only the shared room was lit, the one he used to share with Femi before life put them on different tracks. Femi lay on the bed, asleep, a soft smile on his lips. His chest rose and fell with a rhythm that echoed peace. Deji paused at the doorway. That same rise and fall once calmed him. Tonight, it felt like mockery. Folded on the nearby chair was the white singlet Femi had worn earlier, the fabric still bearing traces of cologne in the day's sweat. Beneath the bed, his boxers hung lazily over a shoe. Deji's hand trembled. He stood for a long time, frozen. You can still turn back, something whispered. But another voice, deeper, wounded, replied, You've been turning back your whole life. Deji picked up the singlet with slow, reverent fingers, like touching something sacred. He retrieved the boxers, folded both carefully, and slipped them into a black nylon bag. His hands were cold. His heart pounded. He didn't look at Femi again. He couldn't. Outside, the sky had turned pitch. Even the moon refused to watch. With the calabash and the stolen garments tucked under his arm, he headed back toward the forest path, the gourd feeling heavier with each step. When he arrived at Igbo Oro, Baba Adefalaju was already outside, seated in the middle of a chalk-drawn circle, the gourd before him, cowries glistening in the lantern light. Remove your slippers, the old man said. Deji obeyed, feet pressing into the cold earth. Kneel. He knelt. The gourd was opened, the cloth placed inside, the wind stilled. Then came the chant. It wasn't English, it wasn't Yoruba. It was something older, something that vibrated inside Deji's chest like a drum carved from his own bones. Baba sprinkled chalk, poured palm oil, then brought out a blade carved with symbols. Your blood must seal the hunger. Deji didn't flinch when the blade kissed his palm. 3 drops fell onto the singlet, As soon as they landed, the gourd shook slightly. The lantern flickered violently. Then the air cracked. Not thunder, but a ripping sound, like the sky itself was tearing cloth. Deji gasped. In that moment, he didn't see with his eyes. He saw paths. One golden, one gray. Femi stood on the golden one smiling. Deji stood on the gray weeping. Then the paths reversed. Slowly as Baba chanted, Femi's road faded. Deji's path glowed. Femi staggered, looked around, confused, like something precious had slipped from his grip. The vision ended. The lantern calmed. The gourd closed. Baba's voice stilled. It is done, he whispered. Your crown will shine now. Deji rose, hand wrapped in cloth, heart pounding. But as he left the grove, the wind brushed his neck, and Baba Adifalaju added, barely above a breath, but if anyone finds this gourd and breaks it, your light will vanish like smoke, and you will start again, with nothing. Deji nodded. He didn't care. He was ready to rise, even if someone else had to fall. Femi missed his flight the next morning. It was unlike him. His alarms were sacred, set in triplicate. But that day they didn't ring. His fully charged phone was dead. The wall clock ticked normally, yet time moved faster than his feet could catch. By the time he reached Ibadan Airport, sweating under his fitted shirt, the doors had closed. He laughed nervously on the phone with Titi. Maybe it's village spirits, he joked. She chuckled. Maybe, or maybe you just need sleep. That evening, Deji got a call from a small hotel in Iloko Ekiti. Their standby generator was failing, and the usual technician had traveled. The manager found his number in an old jotter. Can you come now? They asked. Deji went. He fixed the issue in 30 minutes. They paid him double. Impressed, the manager called his friend, who owned 3 guest houses across Osun State. You should use this guy, he said. Deji signed the maintenance contract within the week. Cash up front. No questions asked. The wind had shifted. Meanwhile, back in Ibadan, Femi's life, once balanced like a well-tuned circuit, began to short. It started small. An email he thought he sent didn't go through. A decimal error showed up in a financial report he was sure he reviewed. The MD called him into a board meeting, eyes hard. You cost us N3 million, Femi. He swore he double-checked, but no one believed him. His promotion talks were paused. His colleagues became cold. Whispers began. Maybe the golden boy is cracking. Titi tried to comfort him. You've just been stressed. But her voice was cautious now, unsure. He snapped one night, shouting that he wasn't mad. She left the next week. In Aiyetoro, Deji bought a new phone, then new clothes, then a small generator of his own. His hands, once known for grease, now carried the shine of wristwatches and freshly printed receipts. People noticed. Mama Ronki, neighbor said, your son is changing. Oh. She peeked from the curtain one evening and saw Deji returning with grocery bags and bottled drinks. Baba Olowo grunted from the porch. At least one of them is acting like a man. Mama frowned. What about Femi? Have you even called him? Baba waved his hand. That one is always fine. But Mama's heart beat with unease. The shift was too sudden, too unnatural, like a river flowing backward. That night, Deji lay on his mattress staring at the ceiling. His phone rang. It was Femi. His voice sounded dim, tired. Just checking on you, bro, Femi said. Deji replied with smooth words, encouragement, a joke, even a prayer. But inside, something dark smiled. The switch had begun, and the world, blind as ever, didn't notice the trade. 6 months. That was all it took. Femi, once the pride of Aiyetoro, returned home. Not in a car, not even on a motorbike. He walked, a nylon bag in one hand, dust on his shoes. His once well-ironed shirt now sagged like defeat. He didn't knock when he entered the compound. He didn't need to. Nobody expected him anymore. Mama Ronke stared at him, hand over her chest. Femi? She whispered. He nodded once. She reached for him, but he moved past her and into the room he once shared with Deji. He didn't speak that day, or the next. He sat under the mango tree in the yard, bottle of ogogoro in hand, eyes glassy, lips muttering words only he could hear. Children whispered, "That's Femi? The one with the car? That's the brother that used to travel to Ibadan?" The elders turned away. In the city, Deji was a different man. He bought a second-hand SUV, then a duplex on the outskirts of Osogbo. He registered Olowo Energy Solutions, with 6 staff and a secretary who called him Sir, like it was carved on his skin. His bank alerts became songs, his phone rang with contracts, not insults, and then came the wedding. Fatik, the same woman who once ignored him at Market Junction, now stood by his side, dressed in gold lace and coral beads. The whole village attended. Musicians hailed him. Deji Olowo, billionaire son of Aiyetoro, star of the soil. The name stuck. They called him Baba Star. Even Baba Olowo began to lean on his shoulder in village meetings. "He is the one carrying the legacy now," he told Mama one night, sipping palm wine. She didn't reply. Her heart was too full of questions. Back under the mango tree, Femi began to change. He shaved only when Mama begged. He bathed every 3 days. Ogogoro became breakfast, lunch, and sleep medicine. He mumbled things like, "It was mine. I saw it go," and sometimes screamed into the air for no reason. Children stopped going near him. "Don't greet him," their mothers warned. "He has seen spirits." Then one evening, Deji declared his ambition. He wanted the Oye Arima title, the very one Femi was born to inherit. Traditionally passed to the eldest son, it came with land, leadership, and a seat in the village council. Deji had influence, money, swagger. He began visiting elders, offering envelopes, George wrappers, even promising to rebuild the town square. He was convincing, smooth, confident. Mama objected softly, but Baba Olowo waved her off. Femi had his chance. The gods do not wait for the weak. The ceremony was set, the drummers hired, palm wine tapped. The town square was swept clean for coronation. Deji arrived in grand style. Agbada wide, beads rattling, head high. The people clapped. The chiefs took their seats. But as the chief priest stepped forward with the title staff, something shifted. The air grew still. The leaves stopped swaying, and the priest paused mid-sentence. He pointed at Deji. "This title cannot be given," he said, voice like thunder. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "Why?" Deji asked, stepping forward. The priest narrowed his eyes. "Because the crown belongs to the sun, and that is not you." The square fell into a thick, stunned silence. Then from a distance, a voice slurred out, Where's my crown?" Everyone turned. It was Femi, shirtless, barefoot, stumbling toward the square with a bottle in hand. His eyes were wild, but beneath the madness, something ancient stirred. The drums stopped. Deji froze. For all he had stolen, he still could not sit on the throne. Because the gods, silent as they may be, never forget their firstborn. Fatik hummed softly as she moved around the house in Osogbo. It was a quiet Saturday, the kind she once loved, mop in one hand, Afrobeat melodies on the speaker, breeze flowing through open windows. Deji had left early, saying he had a big village engagement. She didn't ask questions anymore. His life had become a blur of meetings, power plays, and secrets. She just kept the home warm. But something about this day felt different. Maybe it was the silence. Or maybe it was the way Deji had been talking in his sleep lately, muttering strange things, grinding his teeth, sitting up, drenched in sweat. Last week she heard him whisper, "They won't take it. They can't." She had ignored it. Until now. As she swept the study, a room he always kept locked, her broom hit something behind the desk. It was a solid thud. She paused, frowned, bent lower. A small gourd wrapped in old aso-oke cloth lay wedged between the wall and the back leg of the desk. She pulled it out carefully, her breath hitching. The fabric was dusty, tied in knots. Her hands trembled as she untied them. Inside was a crumpled white singlet. Old, unwashed, a torn boxer, dried chalk, leaves, and something brown, dry, like blood. Her heart froze. She didn't understand what it meant, but she knew it wasn't ordinary. Her legs felt like stone. Her throat tightened. She picked up her phone and dialed Deji. No answer. She dialed again. Still nothing. She grabbed her car keys, didn't change her clothes, and drove straight to Aiyetoro. The compound was already tense when she arrived. Drums had fallen silent. The crowd at the square had frozen. The priest had refused to perform the Oye Aremo rites, and Femi had stumbled into the square, bottle in hand, eyes swirling with madness and memory. But all heads turned when Fadek's car pulled up. She stepped out slowly, barefoot, dust on her face, fury in her eyes. Mama Ronka stood from her mat. Baba Olowo came out from under the tent. Villagers whispered. Deji turned, and his heart stopped. Because in her hands was the one thing that was never meant to be seen, the gourd. She walked into the square like judgment itself. No makeup, no words, just rage. She dropped the calabash at Deji's feet. It thudded. What is this? She asked. Deji opened his mouth. Don't lie, she cut in. Tell them. Tell me. What is this doing in our house? Whose shirt? Whose blood? What have you been doing? Baba Olowo's voice was low. Deji, is this true? Deji looked at his father, his mother, his wife, then at Femi, still swaying near the tree, watching with unfocused eyes. And for the first time in years, Deji stopped pretending. His voice was hollow, barely above a whisper. I didn't plan to become this, but you all made it so easy. They stared. You think I woke up and said, let me be wicked? No, I woke up every day being told I wasn't enough. I tried, God knows I did. But nothing was ever enough. Because I wasn't Femi. He turned to Baba. You gave him everything. You gave me nothing. Mama began to cry, her hands over her mouth. I stole his light because I was tired of the dark, Deji said. But now, it's too heavy to carry. Fadek looked at him, eyes red. Then, without a word, she lifted the calabash and smashed it on the concrete. It exploded with a sound like thunder. Chalk dust, ashes, feathers, cloth, and blood. Femi flinched where he stood. His bottle dropped. His eyes widened. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, something shifted. In the air, in the trees, in Femi. The fog in his eyes cleared. He blinked, stared at the crowd, then down at his own hands. He took one shaky step forward, then another. Where have I been? He whispered. Mama collapsed to her knees, weeping. Baba Olowo staggered backward. Deji just stood there, staring at the shards of his secret. Because in that moment, he knew whatever he had taken was gone. And the crown was returning home. The dust from the shattered calabash still danced in the air like spirits set loose. No one spoke. Even the birds seemed to hush. In the square, Deji stood barefoot, the weight of every decision hanging off his shoulders like wet cloth. The crowd was no longer cheering. The drummers held their sticks still. Eyes shifted from the broken gourd to Deji's pale face to Femi's slow rising posture. Then Femi did something no one expected. He walked forward. Not with rage, not with judgment, but with the fragile steps of a man returning from exile. His eyes were clearer now, his back straighter. He looked at the priest, at Baba Olowo, then finally at Deji. Deji couldn't meet his gaze. I'm sorry, Deji whispered, voice cracked. I wronged you. I let pain twist me. I took what wasn't mine, because no one ever gave me what was. Femi's brows furrowed. He was silent for a moment. Then gently he asked, why? Deji's voice trembled. Because I was never enough. He turned to the crowd, arms hanging limp. Every day I was reminded of what I wasn't. Every mistake I made became a monument. Every success I had was invisible. I didn't want your job, Femi. I wanted to be seen by them. He pointed at Baba and Mama. Mama Ronke sobbed openly now. Baba Olawo looked like he had aged 10 years. You made me believe, Deji continued, that I had to become him to matter. He turned to his father, trembling. You called me useless the day the generator failed. You didn't even look at my hands, these same hands that fixed half the village. You just said, if it were Femi, like Femi was born in the clouds, and I was born in a mistake. The villagers watched in stunned silence. Then Deji looked at his mother. And you, Mama, you stood there. You didn't say anything. You watched them compare me, mock me, and you stayed silent. Mama dropped to her knees, crying harder. Do you know what that does to a child? Deji asked, voice now shaking. To feel invisible in his own home? To be the shadow of someone who never asked for a spotlight? He turned back to Femi, voice almost breaking. You didn't deserve what I did, but I didn't know how else to scream. Silence. Then softly, Femi said, you didn't need to scream. You just needed to speak. I would have listened. I would have stood with you. Deji finally met his eyes. I was ashamed, he whispered. Then Femi, golden child, forgotten son, stepped forward and pulled his brother into a hug. For the first time in years, they embraced. Not as rivals, not as symbols, but as blood, as boys who once chased chickens barefoot through the same compound. And as they held each other, something lifted. Not a curse, but a weight that had sat on that family for far too long. Baba Olawo sank into a chair, staring into the dust. We killed them both, he said quietly. Mama Ronke nodded, eyes swollen. With our mouths. From that day they swore, no child, no grandchild, no visitor in their home would ever be compared again. Because what they once thought was motivation had been a slow, silent poison. The compound was quiet that evening. The same compound that had once echoed with pride and pain now pulsed with something softer. Reflection. Mama Ronke sat under the mango tree, peeling oranges she wasn't really going to eat. Baba Olawo sat beside her, staring at the ground like it could give him the answers he never found in his sons. Every now and then, he muttered a prayer, not to ask for blessings, but for forgiveness. Inside, Femi sat on his bed, freshly bathed. His beard had been trimmed. He had written 3 full pages in the old brown journal Mama once thought was lost. It was filled with reflections on silence, on pain, on being called the Golden One, and feeling like a prisoner to it. He wasn't the same man who had returned barefoot and broken. And Deji? He didn't vanish. He didn't run. He didn't beg the gods to restore his riches or plead with the ancestors to let him keep what wasn't his. He accepted the fall like a man stepping into rain, head bowed, heart open. He sold the SUV. Closed the office in Osogbo. He started again, this time with clean hands. Fadik didn't leave. Not because she forgot, but because she saw the moment he cracked his own pride open in front of the entire village. She saw a man bleeding truth, and while pain doesn't erase wrongdoing, it sometimes begins the path to healing. She stayed. She watched him sweat under the sun, starting his small generator repair business again. She brought him cold water at noon and stood with him at night while he checked coils under candlelight. He was no longer the man who wanted to be a king. He was a man finally free of the hunger to prove he deserved the crown. Femi too began to heal. Slowly, he left Ogogoro behind. He began helping the local school teach tech classes. He fixed the church's inverter. He returned to himself, not as the star child, but as a man who had been to the bottom and chosen to rise. One evening, as the Harmattan breeze blew soft across the rooftops, the brothers sat beneath the mango tree. Femi passed Deji a chilled bottle of malt. Deji took it. They clinked bottles. Femi chuckled. You really stole my boxers. Deji laughed, a real laugh. And singlet. You forgot that part. They both laughed, long and deep. Mama Ronke watched from the kitchen doorway, wiping her hands with a cloth, tears in her eyes but a smile on her lips. Baba Olawo didn't say much, But that night, he placed his hands on both their shoulders. My sons, he whispered. It was the first time he had called them that, in the same sentence. Moral lesson. Every child carries a different light. When you force one to live in another's shadow, you don't just dim them, you risk losing them. Some children go quiet, others burn, and some, like Deji, try to steal what should have always been earned with love. Parents, praise your children not for who you want them to be, but for who they are becoming. Let no home teach its children to compete for affection. Because when stars fight, the sky grows dark.